Welcome to another edition of the Coach's Corner. And we hate to say it, but it looks like summer is over. Yep. The weather is turning cooler here in the Northern Hemisphere, and autumn is well on its way, or fall, as they call it in the USA. I'm not sure why they call it fall. Why do they call it fall?
I guess the leaves falling?
The temperature's falling?
Hey, I don't know. Anyway, we'll leave it to that. Anyway, triathletes all over the world are coming to the end of their season, particularly here in the Northern Hemisphere, and contemplating that off-season and readying themselves for a good period of off-season winter training, readying themselves for that next season. So we're going to be answering a number of questions in relation to that. So starting with Michael A. Sanchez Feliciano said, fall is officially here, followed by winter. I've asked this question previously. I'm really worried about going to the treadmill for a long time. How can I structure a solid treadmill workout in order to maintain or even better improve my run for next racing season?
Well, good question. The treadmill is a great tool, especially when it gets really nasty outside. But even if it's not nasty outside, it's still a good training tool you can include in your training year round. But you have to be careful with the treadmill. Basically, you have to treat a treadmill like its own discipline. So you can't just go from 21 kilometer runs, long runs outside, and then jump in the treadmill the next week and do 21 kilometers on the treadmill because the weather's lousy. That's going to hurt. It's not a good idea. You need to build into it, much like you do with any other training tool. You need to start easy, let your body adapt to it, and then you can build back up to the kind of mileage that you might have been doing outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to call the treadmill the dreadmill. I used to hate it and find it very, very boring. A lot of treadmills these days, if you are in the market for getting yourself a treadmill, purchasing a treadmill, then do look for the smart treadmills if your budget will allow, or some of the devices that allow you to make the training on the treadmill smart, so connecting up to things like Zwift, because it can make it so much more fun. It's definitely helped for myself. But also in terms of the actual training you do on the treadmill, almost treat it a bit like, I guess, going to the swimming pool and doing laps where you do a structured session. Far better off doing structured sessions on the treadmill.
Yeah, break up your session on a treadmill into little bits. Maybe you can put the incline up and do little run hill repeats and then hop off for a little bit. Basically every minute or 2 minutes should be broken down into some kind of goal, either a goal pace or a goal time or whatever it might be, much like the swimming pool. So when you hop on that treadmill, you should have a list of little intervals like you do in your swimming session to really break it up. It's not the kind of thing you can just hop on, look at a blank wall in front of you and run for the distance.
I mean, some people do. I just don't know how they do it.
I don't know how they do it either. It definitely becomes a dreadmill in that case.
Yeah. Next question though. Rich78 said, had my race calendar ruined by COVID, as did many. So next event is now several months away. Tips on what training to do in the meantime. I want to maintain and potentially use this time to improve speed and endurance, but don't want to get burned out as well. Also another one from MP said, from not until next April am I better off
He's not racing until next April. Am I better off focusing on base training as it's off season? Thanks. So basically they're the same question twice. And yes and no. Yes, you are better off using your off season as base training, but the off season really has two goals. One, to work on your weaknesses, and two, to arrive at the start of race season fresh and ready to do the training that you need to be ready for your race. If anything you're doing is going to in any way hinder that, you probably shouldn't be doing it. That's not to say though that you only have to go slow, you only have to go easy, you only have to go short. You can do big miles, you can do really hard training, you can do really fast training, but the emphasis has to be on arriving at the start of the season fresh and ready to go. So if you're working on a load that is just not sustainable, then you need to back that right off. Take more recovery days, take more days in between those hard sessions so that you're on the recovery side of the balance. You don't want to be burning yourself out, but you can do speed work, you can do hard work. If speed, if leg turnover, something like that is your weakness, absolutely work on that in your off season.
Yeah, absolutely. Also something that I like to do is throw in some less serious events. So maybe if you're to plan out a season, A, B, C races, these sort of C, maybe even D races that don't really mean anything, but you can go and get stuck into, give you a little bit of a break from the day in, day out training and give you a good hard workout and that excitement of towing a start line.
Yeah, it does keep you motivated, and that's really the thing through the off season, especially when the weather turns nasty. You need to keep motivated, and having a big session or a big challenge can keep you a lot more motivated than just constantly going for short, easy jogs. The emphasis, of course, though, is on recovery. So if you do a big hard session and you tough yourself out through a really hard, horrible weather, that's great. But then make sure you take an extra few days recovery so that you're mentally fresh and prepared when the race season does come back around.
Very good. Next question, and I like this question, is from Mechanical Monster. He said, I have a question about Zone 2 training. I think a lot of people are going to like this one. Basically, I think it's all baloney. Or maybe I need more info. Started training about 3 years ago, he's age 44, after a lifetime of sedentary living. Right off, I heard about Zone 2 training, got a Garmin and tried to stick to it. After 3 years, I'm no faster than when I started. So, is Zone 2 only applicable after you get some speed and conditioning? I got fit, yes, best shape of my life, but I haven't got any faster. So on and so forth.
We get this question quite often. It's not really an off-season question, but it is quite relevant to the off-season if you're only going to do easier stuff. The thing is that Zone 2 corresponds to your aerobic zone, and it is where you should be doing most of your training. It is conversational. You should be able to hold a conversation. It is low grade, but it will build all of those important aspects of fitness, which is your aerobic conditioning, your strength, your bone, ligaments, tendons, all of that stuff will strengthen. Your muscles will even strengthen. The problem with Zone 2 training is that if you train in Zone 2, you will be able to keep going in Zone 2 forever, potentially, if you train really well.
And nothing else.
Yeah, but you won't really be able to go much faster. Your muscles, your ligaments, your bones, even your aerobic system won't be conditioned to do that faster, higher intensity stuff. So to do that, you need to do some higher intensity training. So as far as your question goes, should I do all my Zone 2 training? The answer is yes. 80, maybe 90% even of your training should be Zone 2, as they told you. But maybe where you misheard, the other 10% should very much be high intensity. It should be really straining yourself and then back to that Zone 2 training to recover and get fitter. Otherwise, you will be a very, very fit Zone 2 athlete.
You know what though? Take forward that Zone 2 training, because what a lot of age groups and amateur athletes fall into the trap of doing is just doing everything kind of hard. So if you can stick to doing that 80 to 90% in Zone 2 and then that 10 to 20% really good high intensity quality work, you're on to a winner.
Yeah, there's definitely a gray zone in between Zone 2 and really high intensity strength speed stuff, and that's where a lot of people end up their training, because that's where it really feels like you're working, feels like you're pushing, but not necessarily you're loading your body, but not necessarily a sustainable load, and you kind of just in that gray zone. So avoid that. Like we said, 80-90% in your Zone 2, but you do have to go fast if you want to go fast.
And we kind of got a bit of a follow-on question here. Robert Hagen, I just started using a structured run training plan to improve my half marathon time, having completed numerous ones in the past without a specific plan. Most of the races I take part in are hilly and trails, and so I'm struggling with the heart rate Zone 2 element of training because I immediately peak out of that zone when I go up hills. Any advice on this? I feel like I need to keep the hills in my easy and long run zones, as this conditioning is good for racing and so on.
Oh, another Zone 2 question, and relevant. Yes, you absolutely do need to stay in Zone 2 now, as we just said in the previous question, but not religiously, not strictly, not that you have to slow down to a walk to get up a hill to stay in Zone 2. Basically what you want to do is get to the end of a Zone 2 run with your average in Zone 2. You can have little spikes and little peaks, and they're not going to do you any harm. They're not going to ruin your session at all. So definitely work through those hills, but what you don't want to get to is where you're really pushing Zone 4, Zone 5 so that you can keep the same pace. In fact, to your question, should you be changing to a pace run so that you can run on those hills and not looking at your heart rate? No, absolutely not. You don't want to try and maintain the same pace uphill, downhill, on the flats, because then basically you're doing a fartlek session, I suppose, with constant changes in your effort level.
I think it's near impossible round Bath anyway.
Oh yeah, I think it would
Good
be.
luck
Yeah,
there.
some of those hills.
I've got to say also, just this is an opportunity to listen to your body as well and learn what that pace and effort feels like. So for ourselves, we rarely look at our pace on a steady, easy run. As we go up a hill, we just adjust it accordingly and keep that effort more or less the same. Sometimes, yeah, as James says, we dip a little bit above that zone 2 into zone 3, maybe zone 4, but on average across zone 2. I've got to admit, on some runs, if it's really steep and I'm just not feeling it, I'm tired and it feels a lot of effort, I walk and take it easy. Very easy. I know, but I do. And there's no shame in that.
No, there's no shame in that. Absolutely. You can obviously walk them. It's still a good aerobic conditioning, but like we say, you don't need to walk them just to stick to your strict heart rate zones. Absolutely. Just kind of let your body flow, feel how it feels to run a little bit harder up the hills and keep that average in the zone 2 for a zone 2 run.
Yeah, absolutely. Final question, and I really like this question. It's from Ryan Bell. He said, really quick British question. Does tea count towards daily water consumption? And I feel like this is a very autumnal question. A lot of people like to up their tea
Absolutely.
drinking.
It's a lot. You crave a warm cup of tea versus a cold glass of water as the weather cools down. The answer is yes, it does contribute to your overall intake of fluid, but also be careful. So no, maybe you can't equate 8 cups of tea to 8 glasses of water for your day.
The big issue is that tea has caffeine in it, and caffeine is a diuretic, which therefore means that you end up peeing more.
Exactly, yeah. So 8 glasses of tea, 8 cups of tea doesn't necessarily equate to 8 glasses of water. Also remember that a little teacup does not hold 250 or 300 mils like your glass of water does. What I would suggest, if you are worried about your hydration, if you are doing massively hard treadmill sessions or Zwift sessions and you're sweating a lot and you're worried about keeping hydrated, you should probably have a glass of water while you brew your tea.
Yeah, maybe you do a chaser, so you have a tea with a chaser ready of electrolyte. Tea. No.
Maybe just have a glass of water while your tea's brewing, and you'll be well hydrated and you can sit and sip and enjoy your tea in the cool autumn weather. It is an important question though, because some people will literally just have 8 cups of tea a day and not even have any water.
100%, and it's not even an intentional thing sometimes. I'm definitely guilty of just drinking coffee all day and then it gets in the day and wonder why I've got a headache and I'm feeling very
same goes for
dehydrated.
coffee, of course. Same goes for coffee, tea, coffee. Interchangeable. If you're American, maybe you're talking about coffee here. If you're British, maybe you're talking about tea. But same thing, they have caffeine in them, so beware of how much you're drinking and supplement with some water if you want to stay well hydrated.
Yeah, well, fantastic questions. Please do keep them coming using the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. We hope you have enjoyed today's video, so please do give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe down below.